Hey guys, welcome back. I know I've been gone for a while. I've had some stuff going on in my personal life that I had to take care of. Nothing major, nothing big, just things that needed my attention. So, got that taken care of. Hopefully, I'll be back. Hopefully, everything is set up at the house now, and in a week or two, we'll have some real videos going on. I know I keep saying that, and things keep happening that I have to take care of with my family or my business or with my work life, and it's just been a lot of hustle and bustle and trying to get things going. I just wanted to come on because I know that I got a shout out from a podcast, So Wizard, which is why you guys are probably here because there's no other way of finding me. I'm not really well known. Maybe you caught me from Twitter. That's really it. That's like the only two places. I'm on Facebook, but no one really looks at that page. So just catch me on Twitter. That's where you'll catch most of my stuff. It's at 5MGO underscore show. I tweet a lot of stuff about comics, movies, toys, anything anything that I'm thinking about. Really, I talk about lots of things. So today I have a list again because I'm a big fan of this. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the comics, and let's see, I could look down. I'll look down. Let's do that. Comics, movies, and some of the podcasts that I listen to since the nice people over at So Wizard gave me a shout out, especially Aubrey. That was very nice. You didn't have to do that. I do appreciate it because I do this for the same reason that you guys do your show, which is I'm a geek. I like to talk about it. You guys remind me a lot of my friends, which I wish could be here more, and we've tried, but as anyone who's ever done anything like this knows, schedules don't always match up, so it's really hard for me to try and get everyone together and make a group thing happen from time to time. Even with my wife, because of her work schedule, my work schedule, and then our personal lives, it's really hard just to do a whole thing. So anyway, that's my big spiel and disclaimer and explanation of where I've been and what's been going on. I know it's not much, but that's what's happened. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to go down the list here and we'll get into it. First thing is comics. The big thing right now, as everyone should know, if you're a Marvel fan, or even if you're not and you pay attention to that universe at all, is Secret Wars. Now, there are comics that I read. I read a lot. I couldn't make a list of the whole titles, but just suffice to say, I'm picking up somewhere between 8 and 12 every Wednesday now. I mean, my pull list has got really long, and it's not all of them are great, not all of them are bad. It's just I want the whole event, so there's little details here and there, and I like to pick up the whole thing so I know what's going on. I will recommend that you read Infinity Gauntlet. Now, Infinity Gauntlet to me doesn't really tie in with Secret Wars right now. I'm sure it's going to, but I'm really not a fan of having events, whether it's Convergence or Secret Wars or anything. Original Sin is something I'm catching all the way up on. I got one of the trades on that. But, it's a really solid comic. I was really surprised at how solid it is and how much the story is interesting. It's very Walking Dead-ish on its focus on a central group, on a family. And I really like it, and it's worth checking out. It's not going to add a whole lot to Secret Wars right now, but in the future it might pan out to be something bigger. It definitely has the potential to, but you should read it. But it does suffer from the fact that in these big events, sometimes they try to cash in by just slapping that sticker on every comic they're making. This is one of those cases where I'm going to let it slide because it's an actually solid comic. But that said, there are some within the main line that I think are worth reading, either for the content or just because they really use that universe properly of Battleworld. Age of Ultron versus Marvel Zombies. Both those things are awesome on their own. You put them together, especially in this world, and some really interesting things come out of it, and the dynamic and what happens there is not exactly what you would expect at this point. I recommend you check it out, especially if you're a fan of either of those, or if you're enjoying Secret Wars and you just haven't checked out that title. It's worth noting that the art is really solid. It combines the aesthetic of both, and it also brings in some really interesting storylines that maybe we haven't seen developed elsewhere within Battle World or Secret Wars. I wouldn't recommend you check out Battle World. That's the second title in the line that I would say has the potential to make a big impact. Not so much because anything particular is going on there. It's more of an overview of everything that's going on. It's almost like a journal. But check it out, because if you're trying to just catch up with the story and you don't want to read every single comic, Battle World is a great one to have on deck to kind of know where everything's pacing and what events are happening where and who's involved with what and who's remaining, who's alive, who's not. And of course, Secret Wars, read the main title. If you're going to read the event at all, you got to do that. I mean, some people don't. I think that's weird. Don't do that. Read the main title. Thor's is a really good one because the Thors play an interesting role within this universe, within this world that's been created. And this one is very, it's almost like a cop procedural thriller. It's worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of any of the incarnations of Thor. Almost any of them are going to be in there. You're going to get to see them. You're really going to get to, experience that because it focuses really tight on what it's like to be a Thor in this universe. And there's going to be spoilers, so I guess this is the first big one. They serve as the cops. If you haven't, they're the enforcers for Doom. If you haven't been reading this, you don't know that. They are the enforcers for Doom in this world, and Doom is the overlord of everything that's happening. Him and Strange and somebody else that I don't want to give away right now. Read the stories. You'll be pleasantly surprised. But Thor's is definitely worth looking into, and definitely has a role within this universe, I think. And I think it's going to be the big surprise of where some of the mainline ending is built up in. Future Imperfect is another one that I think is worth reading because it combines so many elements and so many things we haven't seen, and maybe it's not that important, but it's a really solid comic, and it really utilizes the characters and the setting and the universe properly, and it's a story that really needs Battle World to have a chance to be told. There's a lot of stories that are being told that could be told as a single title or a what if or a different universe, things that happen all the time in comics that we don't need this for. So check that out. It's definitely worth doing. Quickly going to list off some and whether or not I think these are just the ones that came off the top of my head. So that means they've made an impression, good or bad. Planet Hulk. If you're a Hulk fan, it's definitely worth checking out. 2099. Secret Wars 2099 is worth reading if you just want to see something goofy and strange. And I don't think it has so much to do with this event, but it really does have its own storyline that's going on, and it is an interesting story to some extent. I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing ever, but it's worth checking out. Journal, again, as I mentioned, you could probably get by with just Battle World and Secret Wars and then pick one of the other titles just that you're focused on, that you like, one of the characters or families or organizations that you're checking. Check it out, it's worth it. But Journal's not bad to have. It's not going to kill you to check it out. X for Extinction. It's a really solid one that's going on right now. You have to be a fan of that art style and those characters, but if you are, it's worth it. Extinction Agenda, if you like that storyline to begin with and you want to see what would happen, check it out because it happens. I mean, it's kind of Deadpool's Secret War. It goes back to the original Secret War. Well, I guess not original because this isn't really a continuation of that. But it goes back to the old 80s storyline, and it ties Deadpool in there, and he throws himself in it. If you're a Deadpool fan, it's definitely worth to read. Mrs. Deadpool, I'm sorry, and the Howling Commandos. Interesting story if you like the Deadpool type comics. Doesn't really need Secret Wars to happen, but if you're a fan of monsters and horror, I mean, there's not that much of a horror element, but if you're a fan of that kind of genre of Wolfmen and mummies and Frankensteins, check it out. I am. I love them, so it's good. And then the one that I would highly, highly recommend that I feel doesn't need this world to happen, but they're kind of forcing it in there, is 1872. It's something we haven't seen before. It's Marvel set in the Wild West, and it's a really interesting take on some of the characters and the dynamics there and what ifs. And not everyone exactly fits in roles like you think they would, and it plays out differently than you expect, and I'm really enjoying it. And I was surprised because I had a whole lot of hype that I built in myself. So skipping over that now, I guess not skipping, but now that we're done with Secret Wars, the other comics that I'm checking out and that I recommend that people look into are Black Widow. Black Widow, if you follow my Twitter, I'm a huge fan of it. God, the art is amazing. The storyline is amazing. The writing is so dynamic. I cannot speak highly enough of this comic. It's probably the best solo title Marvel's come up with in the last 5 years, and it definitely deserves your attention, especially if you're confused with Black Widow in the MCU. It's not exactly going to line up, but it's going to give you a lot of insight to that. Marvel has carefully curated what they do with the comics and how it impacts their cinematic universe, and altogether it seems to mesh well, even though they're playing to both fans, the moviegoers, and the hardcore comics fans. And you could either jump in as a new guy, because you're only 20 issues in, you can pick up some trades and be fairly up to date pretty quick, and it's definitely worth your time if you want to pick up a new comic or you don't know where to go, or if you're just interested in some of the smaller characters that haven't really been explored in depth before. And Black Widow has in the past. She's had several titles that have been great, but this one really stands out in mine, and it really stands out for Marvel and for comics in general right now. One of the newer comics that's coming out right now, I think they're on issue 2, maybe 3. I'm gonna say 2 because I think I have 2, but it may be 3. Is Harley Quinn and Power Girl. Now, my wife had Harley Quinn and had Power Girl and Huntress, and she's collected both those titles. And I got this for her, but I've really enjoyed it. It's interesting. It's fun. It's not a heavy comic. It's more of just a general, fun-loving. If you like these characters and you like DC, read it. It's the same vein as the Harley Quinn comics were before. You definitely got to check it out. Harley Quinn's another comic that you should check out if you like the character, especially with Suicide Squad coming out. It might be worth it. Batman. Now, Batman since Convergence, I loved Endgame. I was really surprised. It did feel a bit dated. It did feel a bit old school, but I like that because Batman is old school to me. That's where I came into comics, was Batman and Daredevil and Superman in the early 90s. They all had big arcs going on with Nightfall and the Death and Return and Man Without Fear. And I'm actually just now getting excited. This is a total tangent, but I'm excited for the movies. I was talking about this with my friends last night. I'm really excited for the Heroes for Hire people coming out with their own series, and Daredevil being on Netflix, all of those guys, because Punisher, Luke Cage, Danny Rand, Jessica Jones, those guys that are going to be on TV, those were the comics I got into once I actually started exploring comics. Nick Fury, I loved those. So it's really interesting to see that. I'm really happy. Only thing I could ask for right now that I haven't seen coming out is I know that there's going to be a Green Lantern Corps movie at some point. I'm told that the Corps is going to feature Guy Gardner. Please, somebody over there, bring out Guy Gardner. I love Guy Gardner. He's my favorite Lantern. I don't know why he doesn't get enough respect. He's proved time and time again he's the badass that everyone wants. So anyway, Batman, to get back to it, Endgame was great. It made me really happy. And now that we have, sorry, my camera was telling me things. And now that we have this new one, spoiler alert, Jim Gordon is the new Batman in a power mech suit and a suit. And, it's interesting. I'm not sure I like it yet, but I don't dislike it. So for a lifelong Batman fan for me, for a lifelong Batman fan like me, it's really an interesting take because it's a different what if it's not Thomas Wayne coming in. It's not somebody else. I'm saying it's Jim Gordon doing it. And, it's probably his best shot at being Batman, and it's better than most of the fill-ins that we've had over the years. I'll give it that, and it's definitely worth checking out. I'm not crazy in love with the designs that they have, but the story itself is really interesting, and it's something you would expect to see. It's a corporate kind of ran Batman with Commissioner Gordon, and then the villains are a little bit off. It's not quite Batman, but it's Batman for right now, so let's live with it. And then Bruce Wayne has his old thing going on too in the background. Anyway, check it out. If you're a Batman fan, you won't be disappointed. Now that said, that's the big two. That's the big two, what they have out that I read constantly. There's a bunch of other titles I'm subscribed to. I don't want to get into that because I don't have time. We Stand on Guard. If you don't know what We Stand on Guard is, go check it out. There's only 2 issues. I promise you won't be mad that you wasted the money. It's an interesting story. I know it started off really strong, and then the second issue, people were giving it slightly less. We're discounting it a little bit more in the reviews, but I thought that the story developed where it was because the pacing got right. The first story was great for recapping, getting us into the universe and explaining what's going on, and then 2 set the tone that I think if we can follow it up for the rest of the year or however long this run's going to last, it'll be great. I don't know that the story needs to be short. I don't know that it needs to be long. I like that it has the potential for both. It can focus on one person or one group and be done in a short time, or it could carry on like The Walking Dead has. It really has that potential, and it has a great group dynamic to be developed. It's not there yet, but it could be. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes here, which is movies. I'm gonna skim over the movies, but I'm gonna give you the basics of what I think and where you can find out more. And I'm gonna talk about movies. Fantastic Four. I saw that last weekend. It's not a good movie, and it's Trank's fault. That's my 2 cents. There are a ton of things wrong with it. Actually, I'm gonna give a shout out here. So Wizard actually just did episode 53. And it is a great group takedown of that movie, of what's wrong with it, point by point. Now, they're a little bit harsh for my taste, but they have an ongoing dialogue, let's say, with Fox, I guess. And you should definitely check out what they had to say about it, because they're not wrong. They just may be a little more driven to drive those nails home in that coffin. I didn't think it was that bad, but it definitely had very bad moments. So you can go check that out. It's don't waste your money. Don't pay extra for IMAX or anything like that. I don't know if it's on IMAX, but I imagine it is. But it's just not a good movie. It's better than the old ones. I'll say that. But that's a very low bar, and it skims that bar so lightly. Let's see. Oh, Hitman. I saw Hitman this weekend. Oh, Jesus. Half a star out of however many stars it has. It's a half. It doesn't matter. If there's 1 star, it's less than a half. It's a percentage that starts with 0.0. But other than that, I'd say it's a half. It is not a good movie. It could have been, but I felt like the first 45 minutes were super felonious. And then all the action was just... whoever edited that, I'm not even going to go look at who edited it. Jesus. If you thought Batman Begins had harsh edits in their action scenes, this really, really, really does. It's so bad. I mean, it could have been a great action flick like The Matrix or even John Wick, whose team did this one. But no, it just didn't work out for him. And then the dialogue is horrible. I mean, people give George Lucas a bad time. That's the first one that came to mind that people give a hard time. But this is just, oh God. Zachary Quintos is in it. Rupert Friend. Oh, it's just their mouth feels weird. Like, you know how people say that Sean Connery read for Gandalf and was like, I don't understand this rubbish. That was a horrible Sean Connery. What the? Anyway, or who's the other one? Anyway, people that have read for roles and they don't understand them. Alec Guinness was mad with Star Wars. Trust me, the fact that somebody read this and was like, oh yeah, I'll say this on camera. Drug test all around. That's what needs to happen there. I saw MI5. I'm not a fan of Mission Impossible movies. They're not entertaining to me. That said, I really enjoyed 5. I hope it's 5. Rogue Nation. It's the one that's out in the theater. Go watch it. It's good. Again, not a fan, so I don't keep track of the numbers because I stopped watching like after the second one. I've seen all the rest, but I don't rewatch any of them. But it was really good. It's not quite as outlandish as the Fast and Furious has gotten, so it's not quite as enjoyable as the Fast and Furious, honestly. But it's still a good watch. It's worth the money. It's got some solid moments, and it does something different. I'll say that. I'm not sure that it's unique, and I'm not sure it warrants any special attention, but it's worth a watch. It's definitely worth that. Oh, Vacation, the remake / sequel / reboot. I mean, I guess technically it's got to be a sequel because the family's all there, but I laughed more than I thought I would. I have to say that, and I actually enjoyed it. I left happy. I had fun watching it. There's some jokes that fall a little flat. There's some things that carry on a little bit too far, but I think it has all the right kinds of humor for people that are past the age of 13 and not, too heavy on the language and the content. If you can watch South Park and laugh, you can watch this and laugh. You'll definitely get a kick out of it and enjoy the movie. There's nothing wrong with it. It's thoroughly enjoyable. It's funny on a lot of different, I'm not going to say levels, but types. So go watch it. Have a little bit of fun. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I mean, it's hit or miss. It's not the greatest thing in the world. But honestly, I didn't think that the original Vacation movies were... I mean, the one with Ethan Embry was god-awful, honestly. This is one of the better entries. You don't get everything you got from the first one, sure, but this one has new stuff, and I think it plays well, and I enjoy it, and Chris Hemsworth is hilarious, so watch it for that, at least. If you want to laugh at it, you'll laugh at it. Oh, so now there's 4 podcasts, and one, it's a podcast / YouTube channel that it depends on how much time I have and whether or not I'm at work or in the car, whether I listen to it. Because if I'm at work or in the car, I listen to it. And if I have time and I'm at home or on lunch break, then I watch the video. So I'll get to that. Anyway, first one is Skeptoid, which if you're into skeptical inquiry, not just ghost and paranormal, although if you are Mysterious Universe parapods, I'm not putting those on the list, but they're good for it. But if you have a skeptical mind, you want to find about GMOs or plastic bags or chemistry or any kind of thing, you're like, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. Or I wonder if that's really true. There's a good chance you can find things about ancient history or, woo, science, pseudoscience, all kinds of things on Skeptoid. They run a lot of them. They're short, about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and you can find out a ton of information. Guy just passed me. I'm probably going to have to pay royalties for that song that he was bumping. Anyway, listen to it. You'll find out a ton of information. It's all great. It's all good. It's all worth listening to if you're into that sort of thing. I am. The second one is Serial. Now, Serial's not back yet, but it will be. You should definitely go catch up on the first season, though, while you have a chance. It's great. It's spun off of This American Life, and it's investigative journalism that focuses on one story and goes through the whole thing from beginning to end, includes interviews, stories, details, and it really weaves the story together in such an intricate and interesting way that you're compelled to listen to it. In fact, I ran into my boss one day and was like, hey, and he's like, well, what are you listening to? And I was like, oh, I'm listening to Serial. He's like, what? I listen to Serial. And that's not the only occasion that's happened. Lots of people do. You probably do. You probably heard about it. It was big. It was huge. But if you haven't, definitely check it out because it's a very interesting story about a kid. And at the end of it, you're left wondering if he did it, if someone else did it, who did it, what's right, what's wrong. If you enjoy movies and comics and that kind of thing, and you're like, an untrustworthy narrator, that's an interesting concept. This has definitely got that, although the narrator is trustworthy, it's the journalist. But the story itself unfolds very beautifully. It's a very sad, heartbreaking story, but you definitely get to find out the in-depth and see what these journalists and these people that are involved in these things go through. And it's just a great story in and of itself. And it's one of the better things that I can recommend that you waste your time doing if you just have the ability to listen to audio. Second to lastly, movie fights. Yeah, Screen Junkies movie fights. I'm sure you guys all know about it, but it's a wonderful thing. Andy, Nick, Alicia, Hal, Amy, Dan, Mike. I love all of those guys and some other ones that I'm sorry I can't remember your names. I was sitting down with my pen and my pad and I was like, this one and this one and this one. And, they just had a title fight last weekend and they had a new fight this weekend. There's a new fight every week. You should definitely check it out. They're about an hour to an hour and a half, but they're amazing. They fight on all kinds of topics about movies, some questions you would never even think of, especially when Nick is hosting. Go check it out. It's amazing. You can watch it on YouTube. This is the one I was talking about. And you should. If you have the ability to watch it because the faces and reactions and everything are worth it. The production value is great. But if you don't, you can always listen to it on iTunes, and it blows my mind because they think of things that I would never think of, and they really make you channel your inner nerd to get into it. So I recommend that highly. And lastly is So Wizard, and I don't need a piece of paper for So Wizard because I've been a huge fan since like week 32, and it's Tom and Joey and Mark and Aubrey, but they have people that come on there with them to either co-host, join in, or to fill in for gaps. And so far I've not listened to one episode that's been bad or had a bad person on it. And while I don't always agree with everything, I definitely understand the dynamic, and I love their passion, and I feel like I know them only because they remind me of me and my friends. I'll be real honest. I have a friend, Chris, who has his own channel. You should check it out. I'll tell you about it later. It's Massive Score. Go there. He reminds me very much of Tom because he gets very heated and very upset, and he's very set and knows his geekery where he knows his geekery, and it's games. If you're there, you know that on the Massive Score. But he can be very fiery, and he's a great dude, and you'll love him. And Tom's the same way. And when he gets worked up, that is one of the best things in the world. And he has some of the greatest drops. I don't know where he pulls them from because I listen to all the episodes and I don't hear all of them. Joey reminds me of myself. I don't swear in here. You'll notice that. But if you've ever listened to the Massive Score podcast, there's only one episode. And I'm co-hosting it. Then you know that I'm pretty much a drunken sailor. I get off into my nerdness and it comes out. I'm sorry. It's one of the reasons why it's hard to edit this. Because every once in a while I slip up. So it's really interesting. My friend Shalom is definitely Mark. I'm sorry. It's just, this is our dynamic too. This is the group that hangs out. So that's why it's perfect. Me and Chris and I almost said Mark, but Shalom and my wife, Tasha. She's younger, like Aubrey. Not that much younger. She's a year younger than me, but I'm in the younger group. I'm sorry guys. I would fall down with Aubrey. So anyway, they're a great group. Go listen to them. They're very passionate. They remind me of me and my friends. I love what they do. And it's just great people. Thank you so much for the shout out. I just want to say you guys did not have to do that. Aubrey, I very much understand your position. I have family and friends that are affected with autism, and that we do everything we can to try and help them to get the schooling and stuff that they need and the support they need. And it's been amazing to see how much support is out there in the community. And I'm really glad I could be a part of that for you guys. And if there's anything you ever need, just shout. I can't do much, but I'm always here. And that goes for anyone, any of my viewers. If you ever need anything, you need help, you need to answer a question, just shoot me a line, go on Twitter, whatever. I'll be there and I'll help. This has gone on way too long and I have to go edit it. I will be back later this week. Have a great time. Check out those comics. Check out some of those movies. Don't check out other ones of the movies. Definitely check out the podcast. They're all awesome. Have a good one. Bye.